joining me now is Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny's chief of staff, Leonid Volkov. Thank you so much for being with us. And I want to start where Matt left off, which is this battle for the narrative. Now that the Putin's Palace documentary is out there, we're seeing extraordinary numbers of people watching it. Where do you see this playing into that battle, and where does the battle stand?
Yeah, I think Matt was completely right pointing to the fact that now there is a battle of narrative, because before this investigation, Kremlin always have chosen just to not to notice our investigation, because Kremlin was very sure it's in complete control of the narrative of everything that's going on television. So, and the internet investigations, well, with 5 or even 10 million views are not dangerous for them. So they didn't call Alexei Navalny by name for at least 10 years now. His name was banned from state television. So now actually a regular viewer of Kremlin propaganda should be quite surprised, because Navalny never existed and suddenly he is everywhere, because Kremlin realized that if it doesn't react to this investigation, which has got like over 100 million views, then the viewer will be left alone with only our narrative. So suddenly Navalny is everywhere, there is a massive smear campaign, and they're trying to explain to their audience that this guy emerging from nowhere is the evil, is the Emmanuel Goldstein of our era. He is an American agent, a spy, a traitor, whoever. And they do it like quite hysterical, in quite a hysterical way. And frankly, I don't believe this campaign will be successful. Also because everyone knows that Alexei Navalny is now in prison and can't answer, which actually causes some solidarity and compassion and sentiment towards him.
Well, one of the ways he's been getting his message out there was when he was in the courtroom. And I wonder if you can talk a little bit about his speech in which he talked about Putin as a thieving little man in his bunker and said, I mortally offended him by surviving an attempt at my life that he ordered. And I wonder how that plays into this battle, because not a lot of people have come out on the winning end of a fight against a major smear campaign by the Kremlin.
Yeah, you're right. So, I mean, what's going on? So Kremlin is building up a smear campaign, and it's trying always to go as far away as possible from the facts, from what actually happened. So the Kremlin's idea is always, as it was with Boeing MH17, with Skripal poisoning, with other stories when Kremlin looked bad, is to create a fog, a white noise, to present like 100 versions of what's actually happening, which could be self-contradicting, which could be very different, but so that a regular person would just think, oh, I can't understand what's going on. So the idea is to shift narrative from the facts. And Alexei's statement in the court was very simple. He was poisoned by a forbidden chemical weapon, Novichok. He survived. He dared not only to survive, but to investigate his own poisoning and to attack Putin personally with his palace investigation. And that's the only fact why he is now in this court and why he is now sent to prison. So he's trying to get the narrative back to the very basic facts. He survived a chemical attack and now is put to prison for that.
So let me ask you about him personally. Have you been in touch with him? What have your conversations been like in recent weeks? And from the last time you spoke with him, how worried is he that he might not survive this?
Well, he was very confident about what he is doing. It's not an act of bravery or loss of self-consciousness. He just knows that he belongs to Russia. He knows that he's a Russian politician. It was never on the agenda whether he should or shouldn't return to Russia. It was always from the very beginning clear that once his rehabilitation in Germany is over, once he's once again like physical and mentally fit to go back and to continue his fight, he'll go back. probably Putin didn't really expect that. Putin was quite shocked by the fact that Alexei returned, even very aware of the fact that he might be arrested. But he did, and he has put Putin in quite a unpleasant position, because the Putin had two options, every of these options quite bad. So not to arrest him, to let him go after all the accusations that Alexei dropped in Putin's face, or to arrest him and to become the political prisoner number one in the world now, in a position of a very clear moral advantage. And that's where we are now, and we want to use this moral advantage to build up our organization, to attract more supporters, and to win in the upcoming elections in September.
We only have a very short time left, but I do want to ask you about the U.S., the UK, and the larger EU, which have all called for the immediate release of Navalny. But if he's not freed, what do you hope the response is? And is there more they could be doing?
I hope that the response will be not only to be deeply or gravely concerned, but to reply with personal sanctions targeted against Putin's closest allies and cronies, his oligarchs, his wallets, his nominal holders of his assets, and so on. These are the foundations of Putin's regime, and the West could do a lot sanctioning them. It will be a really important leverage against Putin and his policies.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.